Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Career Talk Tuesdays here. I'm Mrs. Hefner from BCTC West Campus.
Hi, I'm Stacy Campbell from East Campus. Today we have with us Mr. Leinbach, who is the instructor of Auto Collision Repair Technology. So Mr. Leinbach, how long have you been with us?
I believe this is my 12th year here at BCTC.
Cool.
Wow.
That's awesome.
All right, so we like to get started with your history. We like to know how our teachers ended up here. So you can go as far back as you'd like. Did you have a paper route when you were a kid?
For about a week.
There's a story behind that, but I'll let you carry on.
So to give the long drawn out story, essentially I was the typical student in the fact of I worked a lot of odd jobs. So in my process of working odd jobs, I had a very short paper route. I worked at a nursery. I worked at a shoe store, grocery store, bakery, some of your stores like Boscov's and stuff like that. And eventually I got to the point I became a student here at BCTC. And right as that was happening, I got my first job in a garage. I believe I was 15. Back at that time, it wasn't so much about having a driver's license. So I didn't drive cars in and out of the shop, but I got a job in a body shop. And pretty much I started my career, and I worked in dealerships throughout my career until I started teaching here at BCTC.
So when you were hired at 15, I have a couple questions about that. So what was your first job? What did they actually put you to work doing? And do you think the industry is still the same?
No, the industry's changed a lot over the years. So what ended up happening back in that time, I got hired as a helper. So I was kind of like that young entry level technician that these kids become when they leave here. I started out, my first job was just disassembling cars that they were going to write estimates on. Then I would help out in the paint shop, so I would be guided by whoever the mentor was in that shop that I was working for, helping. And as my time was there, I progressed from the non-structural portion to the refinishing portion, and then I ended up being a helper with the gentleman that ran the frame rack and did structural repairs. So in my first 2 or 3 years, I actually kind of wore a lot of different hats and learned a lot.
And you were at BCTC at the same time that you were doing this work?
Yes. So I actually, when I started, my freshman year, I was already in a garage, and then I went on co-op my junior year. So I was only in BCTC in classroom 1 year, and then I went on co-op the next 2.
Wow.
Yeah, that's an unusual experience.
Yes.
Yeah, eye-opening, a lot of learning, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Sorry, Mrs.
Yeah, I know. We keep. Yeah.
I'll ask and then you ask.
Okay.
So I was wondering, did you find that it sounds like you found the pairing valuable, but the live experience, even though you get live experience in the shop, it was also a good pairing to have both together, to have some experience working in a shop and going to BCTC. Did you find that valuable towards your education?
Absolutely. I they go hand in hand. I'll even say to my students now, once you get a job in an actual shop, within 1 year working in a shop, you're going to learn your skill set, and what you learn is going to grow so much. And part of that is going to be because the challenges of school, fire drills, what we're dealing with this particular year, COVID, things like this, you don't have those interruptions. You're showing up to your job, you're punching the clock, and you need to perform, you need to work. And, I always had a very high-driven work ethic. I try to show my students the benefits of being driven like that, and we've been lucky enough to have a lot of students over the years that have excelled and done very well.
That's great.
So you said the industry has changed.
Yes.
a student today couldn't do what you did. They couldn't go in and get the kind of job you got at the age 15. It sounds like the employers trained you. They moved you to all these different areas. They taught you all those different skills. So what could a student today expect?
Well, how the industry has changed over the years, the technology in the cars, the alloys and metals in the cars have changed 2-3-fold over my career. And they're still changing every 5 years. There's still technology just keeps changing in the automotive world. Some of the biggest changes is liability and insurance. So, you know, when I got hired, I was never behind the wheel of a car until I had a driver's license. A lot of shops won't hire students unless they hold a valid driver's license, and that's driven by their insurance and liability. You can't get behind the wheel of a car unless you're licensed in Pennsylvania. Clear, cut, and dry.
So we have to stop and take a moment here because I try to push this. We talk about this at new student orientation when we have parents in front of us. To me, a driver's license is another certification. It's just one more certification that a student needs to be employable, and especially in the transportation field. But I feel like as many parents who are on board and say, yeah, it's great, we support our kid getting a driver's license, we have just as many who do not, for some reason, want their kids to get a driver's license, or we have kids. We have students who really don't want a license, which I have to say is a completely foreign concept to me because I couldn't wait to be in a car and be independent. So I can't fully wrap my head around that. But can you speak to, like, do they have to have, if a kid gets a license, do they have to have insurance? Do they have to be able to afford their car insurance? Do they have to have a car?
Well, no. I mean, it depends on the situation. I mean, we're in Berks County, so typically you're not going to be able to walk to your job, and bus routes are limited. So you have to have a license to be able to get around the area. So most people, when they have a driver's license, they're going to have a vehicle as well. I mean, ultimately, to get behind the steering wheel, you got to have a license. So if a student goes through the program and they excel and they do great, one of the things that could potentially hold them back is not having a valid PA driver's license. And I've had that situation over the years. A lot of times when we see that, the students are going to wait till they're 18 and then they're going to pursue it on their own. But the driver's license is also linked to some of the certifications, inspection and emissions certifications. To hold those certifications, you have to have a driver's license.
Right. And a clean driver's license too, like not tickets or anything like that, getting in trouble for speeding.
Yep.
I know that that's something that typically employers are looking at now too.
Correct.
So could they take the class for the certification without the license, or do they have to have the license to even, because I know that we'll teach the certification classes here often. Can they take the class?
I believe they can take the, well, I don't know. Typically, we make them have a license. They have to have a license.
Okay.
It would be more auto technology because they're the ones that deal with that typically.
Right.
But because our programs are so closely connected in curriculum, students in auto collision are also able to achieve those certifications as well.
So how do we help the student who shows up? We've all three of us have talked to this kiddo before. Parent not supportive for whatever reason. Either they just don't have time, can't get them in the car to practice because we've had that. They're concerned about money. They think they're going to have to pay for insurance and that this kid, like, they need to make this kid fully, able to be out on the road. Like, how do we support that student? How do we help them get a license?
That's a difficult question to answer. In all honesty, my experience is most times, I have to say most of the parents are supportive of the students, at least in my class, and the fact that maybe they don't go out and get that license their freshman or maybe even the junior, but by their senior year, typically most students have their licenses. And I think it's because of me and the school promoting the fact that to be successful and to be able to get into the automotive field, you need to have this license. So some parents that might be apprehensive or nervous, I think as the student son, daughter earns the trust, they start to realize that, hey, this is a necessity if they're going to pursue it.
Right.
Okay.
I have a question for you, specifically, like when you were going through the field and you were learning all the different areas, did you find one specific area that you really, really like it's your favorite out of all of the areas that you work with?
The corny thing here is, as I was asked to do this, I started like sitting at home thinking, gosh, how long have I been doing this? And I realized I'm getting old. But I've had so many great experiences, and I've had the pleasure of working with so many outstanding technicians over my career. And I've learned so much, and to honestly take what I know and share it with the students and hopefully promote the love of the field as well for them. Like, I truly enjoyed working in the garages. I truly love working on cars, taking a car that you ran into a tree or whatever the story behind it is, and then returning it to that customer in that pre-accident condition. It fueled me the whole time. I mean, I love doing it.
That's awesome.
After enough years of doing it, I needed another challenge, and that's how I ended up kind of rolling into BCTC. What can I do that would present a new challenge? So, and that's how I ended up coming here and applying to the school.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, would you have specific education that you would recommend to our students that are considering going in this field?
Well, the automotive collision field is really that the technology keeps growing. Automotively, everything is just so. College is not necessarily a necessity, but it's still a plus. And I feel every student has to kind of sit back and go, what is their goal? Where do they want to be? When they leave the program, if they've been here for the full 3 years, they're definitely prepared to be an entry-level technician, and that gives them the edge above somebody who's just walking off the street and applying.
Right.
But there's such a high demand right now. I have so many kids on co-op this particular year, and it's a great opportunity. There's nothing wrong with pursuing a degree. It's interesting because some students will pursue an associate's or go for the bachelor's degree. Some kids will go into automotive engineering. Some kids just like working and go right into the industry. So there's no right.
It just matters what their goal is and what they want to see happen. Like, you know, if they want to have, like you mentioned, a diverse education, maybe going in the auto tech in the future education because they got their BCTC education for the entry level skills for auto collision, and they compare those two together. We've heard that from some other instructors too, is kind of allowing yourself to be educated in a variety of areas, so then you have a really comprehensive knowledge. Would you agree with that?
I do, and to kind of add to that, I kind of use myself as a comparison when I talk about my students. When I graduated high school, I wasn't really a fan of school. I didn't like it. I liked being in a garage. I had this drive and I wanted to do that. When I applied to BCTC, part of the reason I thought of pursuing it was the thought of, for me, going back to college. For me, later in life, that was kind of a challenge for myself and a goal. So you may graduate high school and college isn't your thing, but 5 years down the road, you might say, you know what, I want to build on this. Maybe I want to open up my own shop and take some business courses. And so there's lots of options.
Right. Neat.
So what does an interview look like in auto collision? Because they're all over the place. As we're talking to instructors, interviews they look a lot different if you're going into advertising, art, and design, or you're heading over to diesel.
Yeah.
What does it look like for you?
Awesome question. So body shops are very different. You can go from a shop that maybe there's only one person and it's a one-car garage and it's his own personal business, and maybe he wants to hire a helper. You can go to a small 3-4 man shop, and then you can go up to very large dealerships, franchises. So the best thing to do is really wear a nice collared shirt, button or polo, and a nice pair of pants. And, you know, if I'm being honest with you, a nice clean pair of jeans or a clean pair of khakis, because when you're doing the interview, even if you're not talking to somebody, they're judging you, they're assessing you. They're, if you're going in there just to fill out the application, some of the students that I've had on co-op that I've sent to shops to apply and interview, and I'll say apply because they didn't even realize they were being interviewed, because that person that they're getting the application from, while they're sitting there filling it out, that person could be the manager or could be the HR person, and they're asking questions and kind of gauging you on your responses.
Right.
I always highlight my students to take their portfolios with, show what they have achieved, and sometimes they get called for interviews and sometimes they get called and they're hired and they never really went through an interview. So it's very diverse,
That is the second time we've heard that, though, that you need to be, that a student, anybody going into a place of business needs to be prepared that any person they talk to, really, the interview starts the moment that you step onto their property, because any person you run into, Mr. Blackburn was sharing a story about the receptionist. I mean, he went in thinking he was talking to a very low-level employee, and the receptionist, for whatever reason, had enough weight with the boss that she went back and said, "You need to interview this guy."
Well, a lot of family businesses, everybody that's working in the shop might be part of the family. So there's going to be discussions amongst the group and the family, who they're going to hire, what they think. So yeah, always be, put your best foot forward, I guess would be the best way to say that.
Nice. So would you have any final words for students as they are considering going into your field and then maybe moving forward, or maybe some experience from your life that you would want a student to know?
Oh gosh, if I told you all that, we'd be here all day. So with that being said, I guess the best thing is work ethic. When you show up to BCTC, when you show up to your class, take a step back and realize that hopefully you've chosen a program that you truly enjoy, and that also realize that this could be something that could be a hobby. It could be something that you learn skills to make some money at home on the side. You could turn it into a career. And when we say career, there's so many choices, from technician to owner to estimator, so it really, lots of opportunities. So show up, give it 110%, do the best that you can, and, the chips will fall where they may.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your experience and for sharing that with us today. We really appreciate it. And I hope everybody enjoyed our Career Talk Tuesday. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All done.